This week, Reverend Wendy talks about the spiritual idea that having our heart broken can lead us to powerful heart-opening experiences. Reverend Wendy offers realistic ways for us to navigate through our own heartaches to reach a deepening of our soul.
So my title of my talk this morning is Broken Wide Open. Say that with me, please. Broken wide open. Broken wide open. We're concluding with a short series we've been exploring together on the teachings and wisdom and writing of Rumi. Rumi was a 13th century Persian Sunni mystic and poet. He was a spiritual leader and a great, great teacher. And the things that he wrote about, the things that he said and taught, still hold true today and are still helpful to us today. And he wrote and talked across a broad spectrum of life's experiences, from the ups to the downs and everything in between. And so I want us to look at this idea of the heart being broken wide open. There are 5 ideas I want to share with you, and the first is the idea that in the breaking of the heart wide open, our heart can be broken open as a result of experiencing something that is pure joy, as well as being broken open by that which is absolutely painful and gut-wrenching, devastating. That both can break our hearts open wide, and why the breaking of our heart open wide is so important, I'll develop through the concepts I want to share. Personally, I think about the times in my own life that my heart has been broken wide open. One that stands out so vividly was April 30th, 1991, in the hospital here in San Diego, when the doctor laid our son Jonathan on my chest, and I saw him for the first time. My heart broke open, and I felt a depth of love and joy and connection and caring beyond anything I had ever experienced in my life before that. How many moms and dads have had that experience? Raise your hand. And how many of you had perhaps your own mother or your own father say to you, "Oh, the delight of parenthood, you just won't know it until you experience it for yourself." And you think, "Oh yeah, right, what do they know? They're just old people telling me something." But then it happens to you, right? And you experience an aspect of yourself and a degree of yourself that's bigger than what you'd ever felt before. Heart broken wide open, experiencing a greater capacity for feeling itself. Another for me was September 11th, 2001. I remember first hearing the news, and then I remember we had a television for some odd reason set up in what is now the family room. And I sat there and watched, as so many others did as well. Heart broken, wide open, and broken open for a long period after that, to the very depths of my soul, to the very marrow of my bones. 2 completely different experiences. One of pure, exquisite joy, breaking my heart wide open. The other of absolute, devastating pain. Both breaking my heart wide open, both allowing me to step into a fuller dimension of what it is to be more fully alive as a conscious, spiritual, human being. Second idea that I want to share with you about this idea of the heart being broken open wide. So it can be broken open wide from pure joy and from devastating pain. The second that I want to, and all the rest actually, are about the heart being broken wide open as a result of painful experiences, and what Rumi wrote and said about this. The second idea is this, that we are not to wallow in our pain, but we're not to run away from it either. We are to stay with it until that pain brings us a gift. We are to stay with it until that pain brings us a gift. I remember the Old Testament story of Jacob wrestling with an angel. It's actually a metaphor for a dream, but that's a whole other message. We won't go into any deeper than that right now. But the story is Jacob is wrestling with an angel, and he will not let that angel go until the angel blesses him. He wants a blessing. As he's wrestling with what he's wrestling with, he will not let it go until he is blessed, until something good comes from it. Don't wallow in your pain, but don't run away from it either. Stay with it until it brings you a gift. I was going to say Gibran. That's next week. I start Gibran. Rumi wrote, I said, what about my eyes? God said, keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? God said, keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? God said, tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. God said, stay with it. The wound is where the light enters. Many of us who are familiar with Rumi are familiar with that last part, I bet. It's one of his most famous sayings. The wound is where the light enters. But we may not have been aware of those first couple of words right before that. Those words that tell us we need to stay with it. We need to stay with it. The wound is where the light enters. The point Rumi is making is you cannot run away from it too soon, because if you run away from that pain and don't enter into it and feel it and honor it with your awareness that it resides in you, if you do not do that, that pain will stay with you and not let you go. But if you can stay with it until it is complete, if you can stay with it until it begins to dissolve, then you can move forward. And then when you move forward, you are moving forward as an expanded version of yourself, having built a greater capacity for your own love, for your own compassion, for your own wisdom, for your own understanding and empathy of another. The wound is where the light enters. The third idea is this, that painful as some of these experiences in life can be, that pain makes room for something new and something good. And it's so easy to treat these words as just trite, positive sayings, and in doing so, we miss what they are really about. It doesn't mean that it's easy to do any of this work. That's why they call it work. But the reward is significant. Painful as it is, it makes room for something new, something good. This is what Rumi had to say along those lines. Sorrow prepares you for joy. Think about that for a moment. Sorrow prepares you for joy. Why would he say that? And why is that true? It is true because how can we really know the fullness of joy if we've never known the difficulty and the pain of sorrow? Sorrow prepares you to be able to experience joy. It violently sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. Breathe into that for a moment. It sweeps everything out of your house so that new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Whatever your sorrow shakes from your heart, far better things will take their place. These can be difficult words to take in, can they not? And yet, if we are willing to be with this concept, we will find that much like Jacob, we will be able to receive something that we would call a blessing out of that darkest night of the soul, the most painful experience we might have ever had. Would we choose to get the lesson that way again? No, and we don't have to. But since we've had the experience, since we've had the sorrow, the pain, the difficulty, does it not make sense for us to eke out of it a learning, a blessing, something in our soul's growth that can help us in our spiritual journey ahead? I want to read a piece to you that was written by one of our members who is attending the Love Actually group. I'm going to change some of the names. I had asked permission when I first received this piece if I could share it in a Sunday message, if it ever became appropriate, and certainly this is a time that it's appropriate. Our Love Actually group is led by member Paige Lauer Torres. She is a therapist, a psychologist, who is certainly trained in all of that traditional modality, and is one who is deeply steeped in her own spiritual growth and is speaking to the idea that our primary relationships serve the purpose, if we understand them, they can serve the purpose to help us actually awaken spiritually. And this is a dialogue, a piece written by somebody in that group of an experience they had. Thank you so much for your devotion to inspire, share, and guide us, all in a positive direction towards our spiritual beings and connecting with our loved ones. As you have witnessed, many moments have touched us deeply, and tonight was a transformation all its own for many of us. I believe the lovely lady who lost her son, Jessica, as she shared her grief and loneliness, it was like an arrow across the room for me. I was so connected to her pain, it was heart-wrenching. Long story short, I lost both of my parents at a very early and critical age, and that has shaped many of my relationships for me and allowed me to stuff the pain and grief for 20 plus years. Tonight brought a light for me about Jessica, that perhaps her Dharma purpose may be that she's been connected with grief through her life experience, has spent a lot of time there, and God has invited her to share that pain and allow others to experience the same, which they may not have before. She is therefore an avenue of transformation for us to embrace the benefit of grief as it brings us close to the ones we loved and lost, and the times we cherished and miss. I felt she embraced all of our pain tonight, including her own. If you're familiar with some of the teachings in Buddhism, it is a bit like the Bodhisattva Teaching. It is a bit like using the energy of your own life, the pain and sorrow of your own life, to experience it in its fullness, but to also let it be the thing that can help others to get in touch with those places inside of themselves that are grieving and that are hurting and that need the loving embrace of another whose mind and heart is open to the true depths of compassion. And while I'm sure that Jessica in no way wanted to ever experience the things that she experienced in her life that were so gut-wrenching, I've had the opportunity on numerous occasions to be with her and learn a little of her story and to feel the depth and breadth of her heart opening wide as a result of such loss in her own personal life. We need each other in the truest, healthiest, best sense of the word. The journeys that each of us take can help others in their journey as well. When we go through difficult times, when our heart is aching, when we feel that we're being broken open and we don't know how to be with it, to be around another who has also been there and can put their arms both literally and figuratively around us helps us to manage our way through to the other side. And both of us emerge to the other side, stronger and more whole and better as a result of that. Fourth point I want to bring forward is this, that there are no walls in an open heart. Boundaries maybe, but no walls. And there's a big difference between boundaries, which in a way is more on the human level of things than it is on the spiritual soul level of things. But there aren't any walls. And yet, What is it that is so common that we do as people when we have been betrayed, when we have been deeply hurt? What is a very common response to that? Negative, what else? Shut down, close off. And we do that by what? Building a wall around our heart. And why do we do that? Protection. Because we don't what? We don't ever want to be hurt again. So by golly, we're going to make sure that no one can ever hurt us again. Does it work? Not ultimately, not in the long run. It doesn't. And it doesn't for a number of reasons. When we build that wall around us, we create a barrier that does not allow love to enter us, and does not allow the love that we really are to be expressed from us and to go anywhere. And not only that, when we build a wall around ourselves, we begin to die on the other side of the wall. We begin to shrivel. We begin to get smaller and smaller and smaller energetically. It is when we are willing to do the work, and we don't have to do that work alone, when we are willing to do that work and let those walls begin to drop, that the heart then can be broken open and expand in such a way that we have a much greater capacity for all the good things that we want to experience in life, for the love, for the joy, for the fun, for the closeness, for true intimacy, for true connection. Rumi says, you have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. I almost didn't include that one because I don't like it. But I think I understand what he means by it, and I think he's right. You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. This is what I think he's suggesting. I think he's suggesting that we don't really know the depth of our own compassion and love until after we've had an experience that broke us open. That when we've had an experience that has broken us open, that very experience is the thing that helps us get in touch with the tremendous capacity for love and care and compassion that we have. I know that on April 29th, 1991, I had no idea, the day before my son was born, that I had as much compassion and love in me until that very next day. And the same thing is true of my daughter, Jennifer. Please don't write me notes. Don't you love your daughter? I love them equally. The very first time is a little bit different than the second time, right? The love is the same, but the second time just is a little bit different. But it wasn't until those kinds of experiences, including the painful experience of 9/11 and others that I haven't shared, equally gut-wrenching, that I could ever experience what my own capacity was. And once you've experienced what your own capacity is for love and compassion and empathy, you never lose it. And you become changed at depth. And you begin to connect with others, and others begin to connect with you in ways that have never happened before. So there are no walls in an open heart, boundaries maybe, but not walls. You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens. And the last, sometimes things do fall apart. There's no question about that, and the falling apart can be very, very painful. But here's where our faith and our trust must come in. And the faith and the trust is that better things are falling together. And if you, like me, have a mind that sometimes wants to argue and find the loophole with things like this, like, oh yeah, right. Doesn't look that way to me. It's falling apart, and I'm not so sure I buy into this thing that they're falling together right now. Do you really gain anything by holding that negative attitude and energy? Do you really gain anything by it? Don't you gain something more in holding to the possibility? Even if you can't believe it entirely, don't you gain more holding to the possibility that while things are falling apart, they're also falling together for something better to occur? Absolutely. So as a basic pragmatic person, hold on to that. Hold on to that. Tempt and test the universe with it. Rumi says, don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. Breathe into that for a moment. Don't grieve. Anything you lose. I would say don't grieve permanently. I'm editing them just a little bit. Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the transcendentalist, said the same thing when he wrote his essay on the law of compensation, which essentially says that for everything that has been lost, something has been gained. For everything that has been gained, something has been lost. The same concept is expressed through the idea of impermanence, which is a key concept in the teaching and the practice of Buddhism. And if we can stay in that place and hold to the idea that whatever it is that might be falling apart in my life now, it is making room for something fresh and new to come forward, or that whatever I have lost will be replaced with something new. If we can stay in that place, we will be so much happier, and we will be operating at the level energetically and consciousness-wise that we will be drawing more of that to us than the very thing we want to step away from. So the 5 ideas were: remember that there's value in the heart being broken open. It can be broken open from joyful experiences as well as gut-wrenching, painful ones. That we are not to wallow in our pain, but we're not to run away from it either. That, like Rumi says, we must stay with it, for the wound is where the light enters. The 3rd idea was that painful as it may be, the pain can make room for something new and something good to be birthed. The 4th is to not build up the walls around our heart, to do whatever work we must do to dismantle those walls so that we truly can express and receive love. And the 5th, that sometimes things do fall apart, but we must put our faith in the idea that it is preparing the way for things to fall together. I leave you with this thought. If we allow pain and sorrow to break our hearts open rather than to shut us down, new life and blessing will eventually come. Namaste.
Thanks for listening. The Unity Center, transforming lives and healing our world. Check us out Sundays at 9 and 11. Subscribe to our podcasts and download our free app for instant access to a wealth of spiritual teachings, services, and events.